Name is Okpe. Um, what do I say? Normally, my background is in communications and marketing PR as well. But within time, over time, due to exploration and life, I've pivoted towards property management. So, without wasting much of your time, let me just run through it. So, what's property management? So, basically, as we do it in Canada, is a job where you take ownership of a property. You've been given a property that it could have between 150 to 500 doors. So in property management, what we call doors are like units, right? It could be an apartment, it could be a townhouse, it could be a condo. So we call the number of units in those places doors, right? So just so you're familiar with those terms, because somebody can ask you during an interview, how many doors have you managed, right? So they're trying to ask you how many units are in the complex that you've managed. Do you understand what I mean? Like, for example, if you live in an apartment building, there would be maybe three or four levels in the building or story buildings, right? And then there'll be different doors, right? Different units. So that's what we call doors. Now, um, you'll be given the whole building to manage, and in managing the whole of that building, you would most likely take ownership. So you become like a landlord, but you work for a particular company, right? You'll be in charge of move-ins, move-outs, leasing, fixing anything that happens in the property, budgeting, getting contractors, getting people to come to the unit to see things, modifying renovation. Literally, you'll be like the owner of the property, right? As well as managing the residents that are in there. People you don't want in the building anymore. As to why, people you want to bring in. So you create a community, and the people you want to move in and out of, the apartment. So there's certain terminologies we have to be used to. So when I'm done with the intro, I'm going to search for a particular job, and I will go through the job description and I will explain what those things mean, right? And how we'll discuss the terminologies, right? But at the back of your fingertips, just know things like notice to enter. Notice to enter means, taking permission to enter the person's apartment. So in Alberta, by law, you're not allowed to enter someone's apartment. The day you give them a key, that unit becomes their space, right? So you're not allowed to enter their apartment. For you to enter the apartment, you need to send a 24, 48 hours notice to enter, right? You send it to the person. They don't have to tell you if they received or not. Just make sure you sent it and put it on the door. And you've put a memo. So here in this field, documentation is everything. You have to document everything you do, right? You have to write it down to be safe because there's a huge chance you will go to court. You'd have to, have all of that. So notice to enter, that's what notice to enter does. It normally ranges between 24 to 72 hours, depending on the severity or the emergency of the case, right? Sometimes you don't need a physical notice. You can just call the person, hey, there's an emergency in your apartment. I need to come in. I'm just calling to tell you, right? By law, the person is supposed to allow you to come in to fix whatever or, sort whatever that is happening in their unit. So notice to enter, number one. Notice of default. Now, what is a notice of default? A notice of default is when somebody misses rent, right? Rent is due on the first in Alberta, by the way. When somebody misses rent, they go on what we call notice of default. If you fail to pay your rent, some companies do second of the month, some companies do third, but maximum third. After third, if you've not paid your rent, you go on what we call notice of default. A notice of default is like a bad credit history. It will stay on your profile for at least 6 years, right? So when you're doing rental recommendations and reference and all of that, it could flow when they are recommending you to another property. Do you understand what I mean? So notice of default, you will issue a notice of default and then you will follow. I'll come back to that as well. So other terminologies would be notice to vacate. Somebody's telling you they want to leave your apartment. That's a notice to vacate, right? And other notices that I will be explaining as we go along. So yeah, that's basically what you're going to be doing. There's something called AIR, so inspection. Um, AIR means is an inspection report. When somebody is coming into the apartment, you have to fill up that form, right? It shows that everything in the unit is in perfect shape because technically you're not supposed to rent out a unit to somebody that isn't in a perfect shape. That form shows every dent or anything that's happening in the apartment. You feel like you keep as an evidence so that when the person is moving out, whatever they've destroyed or whatever they've not done properly, you can charge them. That report serves as that, right? And then, so I will walk you through what happens when somebody comes in leasing and offer to lease. Now, for this role, You don't need any, you just need to understand administration, of course, customer service, a bit of budgeting, a bit of accounting, right? But not much on those sides. Majorly, it's going to be about customer service, leasing, and whatever, right? You can start from either the bottom, build your way up, start from the medium side, build your way up, or you can shoot for the skies as as you're coming in, right? But everything is going to be dependent on your ability to catch up fast and your ability to conquer imposter syndrome. You understand? Please, if you have any question, you can backtrack me. I would stop. Now, the reason why I said this is because given the current trajectory in the market right now, a lot of builders are becoming renters because the market is crazy right now. A lot of persons are not buying. So buildings are going to keep coming up. If you stay in Calgary, if you observe, every 10 kilometer you drive, there's a new condo coming up, right? So those condos are going to need people to manage them. They're going to need people to run them. A lot of companies are coming in. A lot of new guys are coming into the game. And because they don't understand the market, they're training money into these roles and they just want somebody to manage it for them because they themselves don't even understand what they're doing, right? That's where you come in. And it's nice to position yourself now because in the next 5 years, when every other person is catching up, you would be in the director role. You would have moved in your career. And I always tell people the end goal in all of this is to end up with the city of Calgary or Calgary housing, right? That is where you make good money. Like that's where you start getting 170, 180K a year because now you're with the government, right? So where do you start from? You can either start from a baseline of a property manager or an assistant property manager with one of the big boys, or you can start as a leasing consultant, or you can start as a property administrator. Either ways, they're all the same intertwined. You're going to learn the same things there. There's an app called Yadi that you need to familiarize yourself with. It's not that hard to get onto. The first time might be woozy, but it's just the same. It's like going shopping. It's just an app that's going to show you the property you're managing, the amount of units that you're managing. Then when you click the drop down, it's going to go to the tenant's name, and then you click the drop down, it's going to show you the tenant's history and what the tenant's about and all of that, right? Just so, like I said, you can always start as a leasing consultant, you can start as a concierge, you can start as a property administrator, or you can go all the way and become a property manager at on the bounce, right? Now, major problem you might encounter, it will be on the leasing side because every company wants their units to be filled up, right? In property management, how we measure KPIs is your ability to fill up the units, your ability to retain customers, and your ability to deliver great customer service, right? That's how we measure KPIs. Those are like the matrices you be measured on, and those are like the matrices that would um, tie and adjust your bonuses, right? When you get into the system. Now, listen, how does listen work? Listen, I say it requires skill sets and it can be luck as well. Why? Because if you property you're managing is in a hotspot, so we have personally I rank them hot, cold, and medium. If you're downtown, obviously that's a hotspot, right? If you're in the northeast, northwest, hotspot. If you're in the southeast, like sitting, that is not a hotspot, right? That is a medium spot because you're not going to be getting people to want to rent in sitting because it's far away from the city compared to somebody that took a job in a place like downtown Calgary. Sorry, I'm using Calgary for those of you in Edmonton because I don't know the quadrants or the landscape of Edmonton. So those things would also aid your listening. It means you wouldn't have to do too much of, work like somebody that is listening in the southeast or whatever, right? And you don't have to do so much like somebody that is in the, northeast and all. Yeah, you are any question?
Yeah, but sorry, I want to ask, is this class recorded? So I'll just go back to the
I think so, yes.
so we can again.
Banks, I think it's recorded.
Yes. Yes.
Recorded, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Mhm. So, like I said, listen, yeah, listen works like that, right? It's going to be dependent on um that, and again, your skill set. Your skill set in the sense that you'd have to pay attention to certain things. So, towards the end of the class, I'm going to create a scenario and show you like how we would do a typical listen. So, a typical listen would be let's say Muyiwa comes to me, he wants to rent. I'm like, hi Muyiwa, how are you? How you doing? We have a little chit chat. I offer coffee, I offer tea, I throw in a couple of jokes. If he's putting on a Man U jersey or an Arsenal jersey, I'm like, you guys just won the league, oh, congratulations, things like that to get things going. Then I ask him, what are you looking for? Right? He's looking for a one bedroom. And I'm like, hey, are you married? You have kids? Probing questions. Now, when he tells me he's married and he has kids, I already know there's a problem with giving him a one bedroom. Why? Because he's going to come back to me in 6 months and complain that the space is too small. So I tell him, hey, how about, just how many kids do you have? Just probing. Now, I've taken note of the fact that, the unit he wants to rent, one bedroom, might be too small for him. Do you understand? I won't say anything to him yet, but we'll just keep talking. I ask him, do you have pets? Now, in some certain condos, certain types of dogs are not allowed. So if he has a pet, I want to know what type of pet, right? If he has like a pit bull, obviously not allowed in an apartment building or in a condo, right? Which means, again, there's a problem with where you are now. So I cannot, as much as I may like to rent to him because of his pet, I cannot rent to him because I cannot separate him from his pets, which means I might have to cross-sell him to another place where we might have like townhouses or whatever, right? But we'll get to that. So when he said he had a wife and he had kids, now I want to see how old are those kids, right? If they are just toddlers, a one bedroom might suffice. But if they are not, and they're like, between one, let's say one is between 6 to 8, and the other one is between 8 to 12, obviously one bedroom cannot suffice. So at that point now, I am telling we were like, hey, the one bedroom I had is gone. Yeah, somebody just took it. But I do have a two-bedroom that is $100 lesser than the one bedroom you're looking for. Right? Now, in this scenario, we're calling it upselling. I am upselling him to a two-bedroom, right? I tell him if you want, I can go show you a two-bedroom and we can talk numbers, right? First you come in, I show you the two-bedroom, and then we talk numbers. Now, normally when you're leasing, if the unit goes for 1,600 on the market, majority of the time, depending on company policy, you would be able to list out that unit for 1,400. You always have $100 pocket, but the person that is coming to rent doesn't know that. You know that. So basically, what happens is when you're trying to list, then you then tell the person, hey, if you see the person is not closing, because when you're closing, you always try to make sure you tell the person that this is the last unit you have. Somebody else is coming to see it. They should take it now, or they should even put a deposit so you can start the application, right? And then you guys can talk later. And then also let them know that, see, come, it is 1,500. What's your budget? If they are still grumbling, hey, okay, I can give you for, 1,450, and be like, hey, my boss is gonna kill me or whatever, but I can, but they don't know like you can actually give for 1,400, right? So most likely, a lot of persons are gonna see it like, you're doing them a favor, and then you being transparent and you being, open with them most of the time closes that deal. So that's for the leasing aspect. Now, there's going to be the customer relations aspect. Now, that is where you're going to be handling people who are already living in the property, right? And, taking on their complaints, taking up on whatever they need. Most of the time, the issues you're going to have is appliances are breaking down, or, water is leaking, or faucet is not working, or, just maintenance things. So you'd have to, sorry. So you'd have to, go call them, follow up with them, tell them, hey, I'm sorry this has happened. Um, I will come upstairs, or I will come to come see what's going on. I will send the maintenance team to you, and then the maintenance team will check, and then you follow up with them. If they require a new appliance, you order a new appliance, they send it to their unit. You tell them, hey, your appliance is going to come in 2 weeks. I would let you know, and then you create a notice to enter to let them know that the appliance is coming, and that on so day they'll be delivering this to their unit. And every day you just follow up with them to let them know this is coming. I'm still working on that, blah blah blah. As well as when they have challenges, or when they might face any type of issues they might have. Yeah. Any type of issues they might have, or any type of things that might, occur in the unit, you just follow up, and then you try and settle that out, and also try and give them safe landing, as well as customer tenant retention. So you also be checking those whose leases might be expiring anytime soon, 2 to 3 months down the line. You tell them, hey, your lease is expiring. This is what's happening. When can you come into the office so we can have a sit down so I can talk about renewal with you. I want to see how I love you being living in an apartment. I want to see how I can keep you. And you negotiate pricing with them based on what your leaders or head office must have given you. You negotiate pricing with them, and then you see how you can lock that down. So that's that part apart. Then you're going to have a team of maintenance and cleaners. Also have to manage that team and make sure they're working efficiently. And the reason why I said that is because when, sorry, excuse me, when we are, our busiest days in property management are always the first and the 31st. So the 31st because people are moving out, the first because people are moving in, right? Those are like the 2 days you probably wouldn't be able to get a day off, and those are like the 2 days you would always be available. Now, sometimes what happens is when somebody moves out on the 31st, they give us keys by 12 o'clock. Somebody else is moving in by first, right? We have a 24 hours over period to do what we call back to back and flip that unit over, right? What happens is within that 24 hours, we have to come into that unit, paint, clean, redress the unit for a new person to come in, right? So it's to be your job as a property manager to make sure that that process is seamless between the painters and the maintenance. The maintenance guys have to come in, tear the whole place down, paint it, and the cleaners have to do everything and dress it properly for a new person to come in. Any damage in the unit, we have to fix it that day. If it's not doable, which we would know before that day, we'll then maybe do an MEP or we'll do a complete renovation of the unit, depending on the damage that was done to the unit, right? Most of the time, we tear out old carpets, either put new carpets or put new flooring. We do new appliances. Normally, a proper renovation takes 15 days. It takes 15 days for us to, flip a whole unit upside down, right? Do new bath, do everything, 15 days. And now, again, you'll be given a budget for that, and you have to work within that budget, right? Which means you'd have to call the contractors, which will give you the best price, will be cheaper. Of course, there's going to be a list of contractors for you to pick from and follow from, right? Any questions? You guys have
What's
it.
MEP?
MEP means month end preparation. So back to back is 24 hours, which means we're flipping from 31st to 1st. MEP is 5 days, which MEP is like the unit has some maintenance that are required, but they are not bad, right? That's like partial renovation. While full renovation is what is that one takes 15 days. Again, this thing varies based on company policies and how the company wants to redress. But these are like just terms you just need to, familiarize yourself with. Like the overhaul of like what you're going to be doing. And then as well as following up with what we call guest cards. So guest cards are like people who have made inquiries. So we have either Zentek, there are going to be different apps depending on the company you use, where they collect directory or a directory of numbers that have made inquiries on their properties. So when somebody makes an inquiry, the place they made the inquiry, let's say Kijiji or Rent Faster, sends that inquiry to the property. So that inquiry will come to you or your listening team. You guys will then have to call those people and then, follow up with them and see if you can, convert that lead into an application or rent. Now, what happens with applications is when somebody comes in, they want to see a property, you've shown them, you've done everything. You have to take deposits to guarantee their spot, right? And once you take deposits from one person, you cannot take deposit from another person. It's illegal. If that thing goes to court, you will lose a lot of money. So once you take deposit from one person, you have to follow up with their application and either accept or reject the application before you can take deposit from another person. Do you understand? And mostly what happens with deposit is if the person puts in the deposit, you accept the application, right, and approve it. Then they decide to cancel. Most of the time, they're going to lose their money. So you have to explain these things as part of the policy of the company you might work for to the prospective resident. But if let's say they apply and maybe they have bad credit or something is wrong, and then the company rejects the application, 100% their money goes back to them. So when you're taking an application, you have to explain this thing to the resident, and they might ask you during a job interview as well. You explain. Now, um, I'm going to now the jobs down. So leasing agent or leasing consultants, right? Leasing agents or leasing consultants are like entry levels. you'll be given a unit to fill up. So depending on how big the place is, you'll be given a unit that maybe has 250 to 300 doors. You have to fill it up. You have to fill the place up. You'd have to do the code calling and showings and filling up and all of that. It's like an entry level. The pay for listing consultant or listing agent normally ranges between 50 to $80,000, depending on the company and the location of where you negotiate your deal. But normally, like I said, it's an entry level because if you enter the company like that in 6 months, 8 months, you can always move to being a property manager or property administrator, depending on the company and depending on the space they have. Like, for example, let me share my screen. Yeah, nice. Can you guys see my screen now? So these guys are like, they are fast and coming in Calgary and Edmonton. They are very, like they're building fast. Their units are coming up. So if you check here, you're gonna see leasing consultant, right? They have in Edmonton, they have in Calgary, they have in Winnipeg, wherever, leasing consultant. And you're gonna see property administrator. You're gonna see community manager. So community managers are like above property manager. So community manager means you're managing all the properties in Calgary, and then you have property managers under you, right? So this is like a community manager is like a bigger role. And then development manager and director of development design, these are like for engineers. So if your background is in architecture or engineering, that will be for you. I think there's one guy that contacted me, he's an engineer. I think I sent him that. Um, yeah, property administrator. So basically you're gonna be doing the administrative side of things. Like, you're gonna handle the project, handle the administrative sides, organize queues, multitask, provide, prioritize workloads, and maintain high level of accuracy details. So just paperwork, basically, that's what you're going to be doing. You're not going to be doing a lot of, the property management on itself. You're just going to be doing a lot of the paperwork, assisting critical duties, ensure list signing, because when people sign lists, we have to sign on every page and all of that. So you're just going to be putting up to make sure all those things are done and all the documentations are, going great. Yes, thanks.
Which one is the one that you need a car? Because some people on the call might not have a car, right?
So this ones, this like leasing agents, property administrator, you might not need a car because most of the time they will tell you if a vehicle is required. So I'll be opening the jobs and I'll be showing you guys. Yes. So let me just run through this one. Now, so you say you're performing administrative duties and listen and task. Like I explained, listen, you'd have to check the listen if they are signing. You have to manage applications, put them in the system, follow up, run the credit checks, follow up with the tenants, make sure they've updated their reference, they've updated their utility bill, they've updated their insurance, right? And also prioritizing personal tours and highlights and all of that. So this one is like more like a leasing consultant as well, but on the other side of things. So you support management, daily tasks, preparing daily and weekly, monthly reports, ensuring timely accuracy, insight of property performance and all of that. You enhance tenant relations, like I said, always follow back with tenants to give feedbacks and, see what their problem is and how you can help. Manage transactions, achieve sales targets. So sales target here would be filling up the unit. Like I said, how many doors have you filled up in the past couple of weeks and all of that will be metrics. They will be set those type of metrics they will use to measure your success. Maintain flexible availability. You might be called up at any time, weekends, at any time to come to work and help out with one or two things. Contribute to market efforts. So marketing efforts. So certain times we do what we call market comms, is where we go shopping. We go and shop with our competitors. We go and make inquiries with our competitors, like we actually want to rent from them, just because we want to see how much they're pricing and what they're doing and how they're doing their own thing and see where we can also improve. It's good to do things like that, especially if you're listening consultant or a property manager, so that in case you're not filling up your unit, you can know what's going on around you and what's happening in your area, right? Same with stay informed, client focus, same thing, team support, like I said, help your team members, give whatever help is needed, fostering a collaborative and supportive work environment, provide exceptional customer service. Yes, like I said, you'd have to, provide exceptional customer service to your residents, right? So this role, this for this company, they don't need much. They just need your PR card or your work permit on a successful criminal background, right? Basically, that's what they need. Like I said, there's a new company. They're new. They're upcoming in within Edmonton and Calgary, right? And I know for leasing consultants, these two, the role starts around 50, 55. But like I said, it's an entry level if you want to start. If you just want to start and build your way up. If you don't want to this thing, that's for you. Now, if you want to bully your way to the top and you feel you can handle the imposter syndrome, this is where you come in. You're a community manager, right? Now, this one role typically goes between 80 to 120 to 150K community manager roles. Like I said, you're gonna so what you bring to the table, let me just jump right in. 3 years of experience in property management. Like I said, some people have shared CV with and have told you do your CV like that. You can do that. Familiarity with RTDRS. So RTDRS is like a tribunal for landlord and tenants. So it's where you take a tenant to sue them to leave your apartment because they're not paying rent or because they don't have insurance or because whatever. So any dispute between you and your tenant, you're going to RTDRS. So you'd have to understand how it works. RTDRS basically is let's say you've not paid rent, right? I cannot just evict you. So if you've not paid rent in a bed, I cannot just evict you. I have to first give you a notice of default, like I said earlier when we started, right? When I give you a notice of default, the notice of default is going to state that you're owing me rent, how much you're owing me, and the timeline for you to pay it. Then I have to follow up with you for 30 days, calling you, emailing you, and knocking on your door. I have to do it interchangeably. Like, I might call you on a Monday, email you on a Tuesday, knock on your door on a Wednesday, without fail for 30 days and be documenting it. Where RTDRS is crazy is if I miss one day or I miss 2 days without contacting you, I have to go and start the process all over again. Do you understand? Like, let's say I've been doing RTDRS, I've been calling and texting you and emailing you from the first, right? And then for some reason, I get to day 25. I forgot. I didn't do 25, 26. On 27th day, when I remember, those 24 days I've done in the past don't count. I have to go and start the process all over again. Do you guys understand? Hello?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yes,
Yes.
we do. Yes, we
You
do.
understand?
Just a quick question.
Yes.
Can I ask one the question here?
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure.
Okay, supposing you mentioned knocking on the door and all of that. Well, supposing the tenant is probably out of the country or not available,
Yeah.
would mailing also suffice, just as you mentioned?
Yeah, so if the tenant is out of the country, you just go on your memo feed and write, you went to knock on the tenant's door, there was no response.
Mm,
But on the memo field that you're entering, it has to be something that it's going to be on Yadi, has a real time stamp, like when you send somebody a message that shows the date and the time that the message came in.
okay.
Do you understand? The memo field
Yeah.
have all of that. And that's why I said it's very important because even if you're going to be off, if you're off duty, the person taking over from you has to do the same thing. Because when you get to day 25 or 20, even 29, and then people miss those 2 days, you have to go and start all over again. Because if you take that case to RTDRS, they're going to throw it out because you've not completed the process.
Hi, please. How do you document knocking on the door?
So you're just going to write every company is going to have like something what we call a memo field
Okay.
through Yadi or whatever CRM system they are using. It's going
Okay.
to have a memo field where you're just going to go to the resident's name, go to the resident's unit number, their profile, and it's going to show you memo. You just enter there that, hey, you went to knock on the resident's door, there was no response. Or maybe you knocked, the resident opened the door and you had a conversation. Hey, I knocked, the resident opened the door. I asked him about his rent. He said he doesn't have it now. I asked him when he's going to be able to pay. He said XYZ. Memo, leave it there.
Okay. Okay. What's the spelling of the app? Yadi? Because I've seen a lot of apps, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, Yadi. Call Yadi. Why? Oh, let me see. I'm just forgetting how to spell that thing. Yeah, YARD.
Okay.
So I have
Yeah.
a question.
Yeah.
So after doing all these things, are you supposed to take maybe pictures or videos as evidence?
So we'll get to that. So when you
Uh,
do all of this, when the team then finally goes to RTDS, right? There's going to be a first hearing. Then the court will give you some documents to go and put on the person's door and take a picture. So when you put that thing on the person's door and you take a picture, you send back to your head office or the compliance committee in your company, and then they will take it from there. So that's like towards the later end. They will tell you what to do as that when you get there. Okay? Any other question? All right. Now it says high school
so I have
diploma.
a question. So
Yeah,
all these are supposed to be done by the community manager, right? The
yeah,
rules of the community
yeah.
manager.
So no, these things will be done by, like I said, community managers like a director role.
Right?
This will be done by your project managers of other sites that you're managing. So you just have to be familiar with the rules because when they are doing it, you have to be able to tell when they are making errors or when they are making mistakes. Do you understand? And then tell them, hey, this thing is not done properly. Send it back. Did you get?
Yes.
Because like I said, this role, this community manager role is like a bigger role, especially for this company. Okay. Now, you just need education, diploma, whatever. That's fine. Prior superior supervisory experience is advantageous, right? Now, if you've been a supervisor before, again, these ones are not an issue. The main issue you're going to face here is this one. Do you understand? The RTDRS. That's going to be like the major issue. Every other thing here is something you can understanding budgeting principles that you can do with Cloud and Excel to do whatever type of budgeting you need to do. Like to figure out if I rent at this price, how much am I going to be losing as per the budget that was given for me for the year, things like that. Now, here, for example, you can see you need a valid driver's license. Why? Because you're going to be managing and overlooking a lot of sites. You'd have to go to those different sites, right?
Okay,
And
please, I have a quick question. Sorry to cut you off. Yeah,
okay.
you said this job, like you have to be available weekends, like even for property managers and even community managers, you
Mhm.
have to be available round the clock, or how does it work?
So normally, sometimes community managers is just Monday to Friday. Depending on again, these things differ from company to company. Some companies don't care about weekends. They want you Monday to Friday. Some companies will tell you to do weekends as well, right? So they're going to tell you as per when you apply and interview. But the major days I know you would not be off would be every first and 31st. These are going to be like your busiest days, right? So you'd have to be available. And you'd have to be available to also guide the property managers, right? And show them, what's going on, what's not going on, what's happening, what's not happening, these type of conversations would have to be happening. Okay. So here you oversee all lead to lease activities, including but not limited to resident moving, move outs, transfer, renew activities. So basically, this role is gonna be a role that manages the property managers themselves. Do you understand? So this is like a director role. But this time, like I said, starting salary for this role is normally between 90 to 150, depending on on how you can negotiate your salary and the company you're going for. Okay. Okay, let me go to. I'm just going to touch as I'm remembering the company that we. All right. So in property management in Calgary, if you're in Calgary, this is like the big boy in Calgary. Boardwalk. When you have Boardwalk on your CV, everybody wants to call you because they believe you understand what you're doing, because these are like the main pioneers of property management, residential property management in Calgary. You can apply to Boardwalk, but just be careful. Boardwalk underpays, but you will learn a lot of experience there. You will gain experience at Boardwalk. That's the and they have in Victoria, they have in um Ontario, they have in Saskatchewan as well. Now, let me just jump right into Boardwalk. Okay, so mm, all right. So with Boardwalk, you can start. Boardwalk, you're gonna need a car and a driver's license to start. That one is standard for them. Live-in resident manager. So live-in means you're gonna live in the unit, right? And this is for Calgary. Let me see. I know these ones they are downtown, right? If you live in, you're gonna get 60% rental discount, and you need a class 5 on your own vehicle because you're gonna need to drive around a lot, right? Boardwalk is base entry. Like I said, if you want to, you can always go to Boardwalk to gain experience. Then from there, you begin to move your way around, right? Because Boardwalk will teach you everything. Like Boardwalk encompasses everything into one rule. It's just that their pay is shit. The pay for Boardwalk starts between 50 to 53,000 a year, right? So yeah, this one is a living. And then, like I said, you get 60% rental discounts. I think it kicks in after 3 months of you being with them after you've passed probation. Why this one is a community resident manager. So this one is you're not living in the unit, you're just managing the place, right? And Boardwalk doesn't require much for you to come in. It's quite easy to get into Boardwalk, honestly. But like I said, it's just it's a nice place to go and start. They're gonna put you hands on and get everything you need to get. So that's for Boardwalk. So you can either go in as a um living resident manager or a community resident manager, or you can go in as a multi-site. Multi-site here means you'll be going to different sites. So if you're somebody who just don't want to stay in one site, you want to learn quickly, you can apply for this one. You'll be going to multi-site, different site. And Bodog has over 60 properties in Calgary alone. So this is nice to gain experience, nice to gain exposure, nice to learn. And trust me, if you're with Boardwalk, in 6 months you would have gained a huge ton of experience. I started with Boardwalk before I began to move up. I was with them first. So there's that. You can either pick any of them, but you can pick the multi-site. Multi-site is great. So there's Avenue Living. So this is like the second best in the city. They are just closely behind Boardwalk, right? Um they're great. Now, assistant property manager, right? Again, good place to start. Good place to like if you're somebody that you know that you cannot handle imposter syndrome and you don't want to stress, it's a good place to start. You can start off as an assistant property manager, and then the entry level is not that hard. The interviews are not that difficult, easy to go in, and then you can start your portfolio from there, from Avenue Living. If you just want to start, like at a very low place. So Avenue Living is great, and it's BGO. Yep, there we go. There's these guys as well. Um, This is also a new company that is coming to Calgary. They are just starting up. Calgary. Yep. They don't have lots of jobs in Calgary right now. Again, you can start here. You can start with their listing on site administrator. Same as well. You're gonna managing properties. You're gonna be move out. The good thing about the this field is that uh, um, every company does almost the same thing. They just change terminologies and changes everything. Yes, Muyiwa.
Hold on. So I want to ask, so the community resident manager in
Boardwalk.
Boardwalk, is it equivalent to a property manager or assistant property manager?
Yes, it's going to be a property manager role. In fact, you're going to be doing more than a property manager role, more than a property manager in other places. Because other places they separate property management, leasing, and what was the last one? And property administrator, right? But at Boardwalk, they merge everything together. You're doing everything at the same time. Like I said, Boardwalk is a nice place to start because you then get that experience. You know how to do everything at once. So that by the time you're not moving to other places, those ones now be, you know, child's play for you. Like if you just want to start at the base level, yes, Boardwalk is the best place to go and start. Do you get? Any other question? All right, so to Rohit. Now, Rohit has a stamp property manager. I don't know anything about this, but because I don't know anything about that, so I'm just going to jump straight to this while we're here. Now, manager role for Rohit. This role is in Edmonton, and right now they are very desperate because they've I think the problem with every investor in Canada, I mean, let me use Alberta, is that they build first, then think about management later. That's why they always get stranded and get into other type of mess. So they have these things in Edmonton, but they don't have somebody to manage the portfolio, right? And the good thing about running a property, you need charisma, right? You need personality. Your English has to be sound as well because you're going to be calling different people. So yeah, so this portfolio is in Edmonton, like I said. Um, it has 400 doors. So there's 250 townhouses or apartment. I can't remember how you explained it. But overall, you're going to be managing 400 doors. Like I said, the salary is between 75 to 85,000. That's just the base salary. Then there's an extra 10% of your salary that is paid if you meet um your KPIs. Like I said, KPIs are going to be measured based on customer retention, customer service, and what's that thing called? Leasing. So if you meet your KPIs, you get extra 10% of your salary. So your salary is, let's say, 85K, you get 8,500. Then every month you're going to get an extra $300 for gas, right? For this role. Now, first of all, you need to have a vehicle. You need to maintain a high level of customer satisfaction and ensuring that tenant inquiries are responded to in a timely manner. Like I said, customer retention. And I think from what they explained during the interview, they kind of maybe have bad reviews and the way they've handled the properties and the residents in that unit. So you practically you'll be walking into a place that they will need you to turn the fortunes around in terms of leasing, retention, and filling of the place. Now, ensure standard aspects of lease agreements are enforced, such as rental payments, community rules, insurance submissions, etc. Now, this part is in Alberta, you cannot give somebody keys to a unit without them paying rent and having insurance, right? And signing all the documents. These three things you must do before you give somebody keys or before you let somebody move into your apartment. Make sure they sign every page of the lease. Make sure they've paid rent, first month rent in full, and make sure they have insurance. And you also have to follow up on insurance because people cancel their insurance. People will move in and cancel their insurance because they think they're saving $20 every month, which, yes, all nice and game, all nice and great until there's flooding in the apartment or fire, and then they don't have insurance, which becomes a big issue. Now, optimize revenue management with expense control to ensure positive NOI. Now, the way you do this is there's what we call vacancy loss. Vacancy loss means every night your unit is empty, that somebody's not sleeping in there, paying you to sleep in there, sorry, you're losing money. So you have to figure out a way to make sure vacancy loss is down. The only way you can do that is to rent that unit, right? And the way you can rent that unit is by making sure that, you're calling, you're discussing with management, you're talking with management to see how we can get pricing within our profit ratio to make sure that we're renting and we're getting things out there, right? Sometimes prices of rentals will fall, depending on price of rental is not consistent because excuse me, because depending on the market. Like for example, somebody might get me and Banks might have the same apartment. Maybe Banks got her own when the market was hot. She'll be paying 1,700. And I got my own when the market was down and I'm paying $1,000. That's what happens in property management, right? Again, renting price differs. They're gonna throw you questions like, let's say the units, the market rate. So something called market rate. Let's say the market rate for my apartment was 1,700. And when I moved into the place, I paid, let's say 1,500 because there was discount. And suddenly now I can see on the way, I've lived with you guys for 2 years. And suddenly now I can see that the place is now going for 1,300 and I'm coming to ask you for 1,300. Now, what you do in that situation is you then tell me, hey, let's go look at your ledger. When you moved in, the place was supposed to be 1,700, but you paid 1,500, which means that when you moved in, you've already gotten your own discount. You've already gotten your own $200 discount. Do you get what I'm saying? So which means you cannot get that discount now. New tenants get the discount. And then they're going to ask you, so how do I do? You're like, the only way you can get the discount is if you move out of the apartment for 30 days and then you come back as a fresh tenant. Then you can then rent it for 1,300. Do you understand? So the conversations like that are going to come up. You just need to explain to them. Now, oversee daily maintenance operations and vendor coordination. So you're gonna have different vendors that are gonna come into the place. You're gonna have contractors from different places, different contractors are gonna come. You have to sign them in, sign them out, ensure they have a smooth transaction, give them keys to where they need to go to, what they need to do, let them explain it properly to you, and things like that. You're also gonna have maintenance operations. So you're gonna have your maintenance team. You have to ensure that they're checking, your boilers, your heaters, every machinery or everything that is used in that unit, elevators, key fobs. You make sure they're on point, as well as following up with residents to see what issues they can fix and what things can be done. Yes, Bankole. Bankole, you have your hand up.
Okay. Um, can you hear me, please?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So if I as a property manager
Mhm.
is attending to a tenant and I give like the example you just gave, that if the person wants a discount and you ask him to leave, you ask him or her to leave, or you ask them to leave for 30 days. What if another tenant comes within the 30 days? Can I give the house out, or do I have a contract with the one that has left?
No, 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 no. So you're telling them to leave for 30 days means like if you leave, see, once the unit becomes empty,
Vacant. Yeah.
but not when the moment they tell you they are leaving your unit
Yeah.
and start showing that unit to people that want to rent.
Okay, fine. So I have no obligation to,
You're saying that if
give it
if
back
they
to
leave
them.
after 30 days, right, and then they reapply, and then you have a unit that you can give to them, fine. Because your priority as a property manager is to make sure your unit is never empty.
But yeah. Yeah.
So the moment somebody
Thank you.
tells you, "Oh, I am leaving," that same day, you'll begin to call people that, "Hey, I have this two-bedroom, it's available now. Come and see it." It's just that every time you're bringing somebody to come and see the unit and they're still living in there, you just have to give them a notice. Like, hey, I'm bringing somebody to show you your apartment, and that's it. And then you can let them come in, and then you show, right? Now, work orders, schedules, preventive maintenance schedules, and schedules are followed. Like I said, you and the preventive maintenance team, you and the maintenance team, and you and the vendors that will come to site would have to have work orders. Please, nobody is allowed to work on your site if they don't have a PO or a work order, right? They don't have a PO or work order, please. Just you're not ready yet. There has to be a pricing agreed for what they want to do, and you need to have a PO for what they want to do first before you let them, start commence work on your site. You're going to oversee leasing process to ensure high leasing up and resident retention. Like I said, leasing is going to be a major part. Although for this role, you're going to have a leasing team. So basically, you're managing that leasing team. You're going to make sure the listening team knows what they're doing and how they're doing it, and also checking with them to see if there are errors and what is going on, why they're not listening the place properly or what's happening. Yes, where you are.
Yeah, so well, so who agrees with vendors or contractors in terms of pricing? Is it you or it's you have a team for that?
So you're going to have procurement team. Normally, you're supposed to have a procurement team. Again, differs between them. I don't know how it works, but normally you're supposed to have a procurement team. And then when you want something to be fixed, right? You send um you'd have a link to create a work order. So you see, once you create the work order gets sent to the procurement team. Procurement team then talks to the vendor, negotiate pricing, does everything. Then they get back to you that, hey, we've given this um thing to XYZ vendor. Yours now will not be to call the vendor, book a date and a time that they want to come and what they are coming to do and when they need to do it and how you want them to do it, right? So that's what you be doing. Okay? Right. So now you supervise the team for lease up and lease as needed. You maintain unit rental listing and identify leasing opportunities to generate traffic. Like I said, perform survey monkeys. Like I said the other time, market comes. You'd have to go to your neighbors to go and shop, to go and see what they are doing. You'd go to other people you call them and see act like you want to rent when you know you're not renting, just because you want to know how much they are giving a two-bedroom. Because if the people across the road are giving out two bedrooms for 1,700, like let's say 1,200, and you're putting on at 1,700, obviously there's going to be a problem, for you to rent, because anybody that's coming to your own place is also going to the next door place to see, they're doing viewings on both sides, right? Just see the residents like yourself. If you're looking for a house, right? As you're checking this person, you're also checking the person that is across, right? Because you want to compare price and compare what you're getting. Now, you also have to train your team, like contribute to team training, process, development, provide solution-oriented feedback to operations manager. You schedule, delegate, perform move-ins, move-out, inspections as needed. Now, move-ins and move-out are very essential. Again, these things um, most of the time lead to court cases. During move-ins, you need to make sure before a move-in, you need to go and inspect the units when your maintenance and cleaners are done to see that everything is in place, everything is done, every bolt, every screw, everything is there. You have to ensure that. So that when you're doing move-in, it is faster and easier for you. You can just tell the tenant everything is done, we sign the document and go. And then you keep a copy of what they signed when they're moving in. So that when they're moving out, you'll be surprised at how dirty and careless a lot of people are, right? Some people live in a place for 1 year and you would need to change the carpet because they've made it a mess. So when that time comes now, you want to charge them to change the carpet. You have to have the moving agreement and slip and be like, when I gave you the carpet, it was brand new, there was no stain, nothing. Now there are a lot of issues. So those inspections have to be done. You have to follow through with those inspections. Most of the time is it's better you go to a cleaner and go to a maintenance guy so that both of you can see it, and you'd have to take pictures, because those pictures might be needed in courts or needed at any point. Perform other duties as may be determined by a supervisor from time to time. So this is probably going to be budget or market comes, or just, doing an NOI of the building, doing an inspection of the building, trying to maintain standard. Now implement procedure and administrative processes for rental operations. So paperwork, basically, training support, provide backup to on-call schedule as needed, perform other related duties as assigned. So yeah, site travels, blah blah blah. Um, Strong knowledge of RTA. So RTA is Renters Tenancy Act. So that's what RTA stands for. So basically, it's a book pamphlet that states the Renter Tenancy Act in Alberta. How many days you can evict somebody, how you want to evict somebody, all those things. So basically, yeah, that's what you need. You just need to know those things. So basically, for this role, you'll be managing those properties, like I said, about 350 doors, and you'd have to go site to site and discuss and liaise and you know everything being equal. So you'd have a leasing team under you, you'd have an assistant property manager, you would have a maintenance and cleaning team under you that you'd have to manage day to day. And you would be reporting to your regional director as well as your community manager that might be, as the case may be, over it. So yeah, that's what the rules are about. No question.
Um, Thank you so much. Can I ask about this RTA? Could you please, what's the full meaning of the acronym? Yeah.
Yeah, renters tenancy, wait, is it renter tenancy? I don't know, forget this, you know. Um, wait, yeah, Residential Tenancy Act. So basically, yeah, it's an act that states and it says what is expected of a tenant, what's expected of a landlord, what the tenant can do, what a landlord can do, what the tenant cannot do, what the landlord cannot do. For example, if let's say somebody owes you rent, there's what we call abandoned units. Let's say somebody owes you rent because you're going to encounter that and they don't want to pay you. People abandon their units. So when you do abandon the unit, what you need to do is you have to go in and evaluate just by taking pictures and looking and see if what they have in the unit, if it's below $3,000, you have to go get a storage. Most of the time, the companies have storage. You have to go get the storage and store those properties for about 30 days. If nobody comes to claim them, then you can throw them away. If the things in the unit are less than $3,000, just throw everything away and change the locks and go on with your day. So things like that are what was written in the RTA. So RTA, honestly, don't bug yourself so much about it. Nobody's going to ask you about that. Most of the questions are going to revolve around customer service, and they want to see and then seeing how you can solve problem. Yeah, problem solving abilities. They're going to ask you trick questions or problem solving questions like, hey, um, you've had this unit for about 30 days, you've not been renting, what's happening? So in that case, you just tell them, hey, I need to evaluate the market first. I need to see what's going on. I need to do a market comms. Like I said, market comms is you going to check three or four units or three or four other property management buildings around you, see what they're doing, how much they're pricing and what's happening. And then when you see that, you then go back to your listening team and be like, hey, can you show me how you're listening to people so I can see if there are errors in what you're saying and how you're doing your walkthrough? Sit down with them, do training, and see how you can also improve. Also, looking at pricing and see how we can knock off a couple of dollars and bring on incentives that might, help with leasing. I think Obina first, then we go to Ade Share. So Obina,
Okay, so you mentioned about the abandoned building, abandoned
unit, yeah.
abandoned unit. Yeah. So, like, say a customer, a tenant left the unit, and maybe you come into the unit and see television, a bed, a cushion. How do you determine the prices of those things to be sure that maybe they are higher than $3,000 or lower than $3,000?
So if you enter somebody's unit now, let's say you see a TV, PlayStation, cushion, they have a bed, they have a dining table, already that's going up to 3K, right? So do that something like that now. You just call your team, tell them they move all those things to the storage. But let's say you come into somebody's unit and there's just the bed and then clothes and just a few things. Um, Normally you go with your team. So it's not just you that will do the evaluation. Normally you and your maintenance guys will go, everybody will, knock heads and do the estimation. And then you then have there's one guy that abandoned an old man, he had an heart attack, he abandoned his unit. And when we went, we saw 2 boxes of silver. So we had to keep it for his family to come and get them. So things like that. And there's also been another abandoned unit where the only thing the person had was bed and a couple of clothing. We just threw everything away. Yes, so I hope that answers your question.
So another question. So what happens to the maybe as what happens to the member of the lease when the person abandons the unit?
So once the person abandons the unit, again, you just document as per policy. You write what you've seen, take a picture, document it, write it to head office. Head office then tells you to complete the move out. So you just enter notice to vacate, enter move out in the system, move the person out, and that's the end. The lease is done.
Okay.
Because before you get to that point, you'd have made attempts to contact them for about 2 months, right?
Yes.
So you'd have made attempt like the RTDRS I told you about. You'd have made attempt to contact them. You'd have been writing your notes. You'd have been writing your memos. You'd have been, I tried to contact them, no response. Try to contact them, no response. Give them a notice to vacate, no response. And then eventually you get to that point.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. So they say, I think.
Hi, thank you very much for your time today. My first question would be regarding policies, because I think we are supposed to update policies regarding the property environment while complying with either the state, the environmental, and all that. So, in order to be up to date in terms of what are the policy requirements, what can we read that will help us to say we know about what is going on in terms of property policies that govern the Ontario or whatever city we are in.
Oh,
That's
so
okay.
okay. Do you mean so policies that you just need to familiarize with in Alberta, for example, is the RTA, so Residential Tenancies Act, right? And honestly, it doesn't update like that unless there's a big issue, a big court case. It's just the same thing. It just covers security deposits and damage, rental increase and limits, landlord's rights to enter etc., eviction procedures, maintenance, repairs, dispute resolution. So it's not like a deep thing. RTDRS, again, that one, you don't hear when I explain that. So that one is just a process that leads up to eviction. It has there's a system at which you have to follow, right? So that one is a 3 days, a 30 days notice period where you give somebody a notice, like I want to evict you for maybe you're not paying rent or your insurance. And then there has to be a way in which you try to communicate. Either you email them, you call them, or you go knock on their door, right? And you have to do it interchangeably and for 30 days. So you have to do it every day without miss. If let's say you've been doing it, you get to like the 25, 26, you were not feeling fine. For some reason you didn't go to site and nobody did anything. If you miss it for 2 days, you have to start the process all over again.
Uh,
Yeah, you have to start the process all over again from day one, from the day you give notice to keep following up. So things like that, you would learn those ones in the job, on the job, depending on the policy of the company. So things like that, those ones you don't have to bug yourself about. Like the major thing you just need to bug yourself about is going to be your customer service, customer retention, leasing, ability to manage your teams, right? Because you're going to have a team of maintenance, team of cleaners, team of leasing, and your administrators. Ability to manage those teams, right? And also ability to think on your feet. Something happens, what's my next do? What do I need to do?
okay, thank you very much. Then the second question will be in terms of budgeting for the year or for the next year, because I believe we are supposed to prepare for budget.
Yeah.
And in order to do the annual or quarterly budgets, adjustments or whatever we need to do or change in terms of rates.
Mhm.
In case we are asked the question, how do you handle that? What will be your viewpoint in terms of what we should speak to?
Okay, so in
Thank you.
terms of budgeting, right? You're going to be giving budgets based on if you need to do renovations or if you need to do repairs or whatever, right? So you just say you have to prioritize what is more important to your residents. For example, if you had a clogged pipe or a leaking pipe or a broken elevator, obviously you prioritize that above painting outside the building, right? Or whatever. So priority will come based on the urgency and the usage of the project that needs to be done. That's for, that part of the budgeting. And then, or maybe if you need to do innovations because let's say you were given a very old building, and now around that building, a couple of new buildings have erupted. And those new buildings are taking your residents, they're taking your customers away. So now you need to do major innovations so that you can meet up with requirements, right? A market, you know, essential. So again, that would come up in your budgeting. Now, in terms of price reduction, that's why I said there's something called market comms, where you go and shop with, your competitors. Now, in shopping with your competitors is you're going to see how much they're renting, like for example, let's say I work with Boardwalk. I manage townhouses. Across the street, normally in Calgary, the way it works in Calgary, across the street of not far from where I am, it's going to be an avenue living with the same type of townhouses. There's going to be Main Street with the same type of townhouses. That's how they normally position themselves. I want to call them and see how much they're giving out three bedroom so that I can know what their pricing is at. I can even book a viewing, go in and go and see it. Let me see what they are doing. Why? Because I want to see how they're doing and what they're doing and where I am getting my own wrong. So if let's say Avenue Living is doing the market rate for that place is 1,700 and Avenue Living is doing 1,500, they've lowballed it to 1,500. I have to come back and tell my management that, hey, our computers are lowballing at 1,500. Oh. I might have to come to 1,500. The main management and everybody will sit down at the table and decide, okay, what do we do? Do we go to 1,500 or do we do 1 month free rent and tell people to prorate it, or do 2 months free rent and tell people to prorate it, or do we even crash the market safe and go 1,300 just because? Do an open day, go 1,300. Anybody that comes in that day gets a 1,300.
Hmm.
You understand? So things like that.
Yeah, very
You would have
strategic.
you would have to do the market comms, get your findings. Normally, I do it in an Excel sheet. Get your findings and then send it to your boss. Or normally, you can use ChatGPT. So just copy the area, copy the names of the companies around you, the area. Ask ChatGPT, do a market competitive analysis for me. You know, include the pricing these people are charging, include the pricing I'm charging. Give me which one, which price would be reasonable and meet my tenant requirements. ChatGPT will do the math for you. You go there, tell them this is what I found, and then you guys will start from there. So that's what you're doing, things like that. And then you also mention things like you also want to see because you're going to have a listening team, right? So let's say your listening team, because listening team normally they come in the afternoon and the evening, they come and take over after you when you've left. They're gonna be listening to people. So you go back to your listening team and be like, okay, what are we doing wrongly? Can you do me a walkthrough? Show me, try and do like you want to list to me. So I can see if you're making errors or you're not selling it properly, right? So we can correct it and there'll be room for training. That's one. Two, you also want to call people that have made inquiries. Let's say Francis, Obina, and Muyiwa made inquiry to your unit, and all three of them did not rent. You want to call them back and ask them, hey, when you made inquiry about us, what was the reason why you didn't rent with us? I'll give you an example. You want to know why, right? And see why they didn't rent, so you can work on that, right? I'll give you an example. One of the first buildings I first managed, McKinnon, I used to manage McKinnon at Boardwalk. It didn't have elevator, it had staircase. So most of the time when I would try to rent, people were like, "Oh, you just have staircase. Oh, I need elevator." When I noticed that was a problem, I started saying, "Oh, the reason why we have staircase is so that you can save on your gym membership. You can count your stairs per day. That way you don't have to pay for gym membership." And then that was like an icebreaker. We all laugh about it, and
Very creative, oh,
that
very.
was helping me. Do you understand? So you'd have to go back to your listening team, get feedback from people that have came in that rejected the place, and see, okay, where are we missing the target? What's going on? Even if there's like maybe no washing machine or whatever. I'll say, hey, if you go to our community washing center, you get to meet your neighbors. You want to know who you're living with and have a conversation. Again, talking to people and being transparent with them, and that's why I said this role or this aspect of job market is made for Nigerians because we know how to talk, we know how to sell things, right? That's why this is not saturated because a lot of persons cannot face the challenges. We know how to talk, we know how to sell things. Like you know how to think on your feet, you know how to bully your way around certain things. So you would easily settle in. Yes, of course. Like I always say, the first 1 to 3 months, you would suffer from imposter syndrome. You will suffer from trying to catch up with things. You will suffer from trying to know your way around because it can be overwhelming because obviously it's a new terrain. You're trying to figure out your way. But once it clicks for you, right? Once you know your onions, honestly, is the easier one of the easiest job you can ever do in this country. And that's just it. Okay. Any other question? I'm sorry if you raised your hand and I did not call you. You can just talk now because I think I lost track. Okay. Um, so like I said, for those that just came in, right? I did. Okay, so let me go to yeah, Francis.
Okay, just to ask, I see this educational background stuff in some of the openings you shared.
Mhm.
Does it really matter in the long grand scheme of things?
No. And the reason why it doesn't matter is because honestly, you just need to know how to speak English, right? Use AI and sort yourself out. It doesn't really matter. Though some people might ask for it, but honestly, it doesn't really matter. Okay. So you can either do property management or you can do things like this: facilities operation manager, condominium operation. So basically, you just read the job description. You're gonna need to, or same similar. Some people just write different names, and as you can see, the pay it goes between 72 to 102, depending on if you can negotiate your pay properly. And you just need to, again, so things like this would be after you've gained like your first set of experience, then you begin to move to places like this because now you understand how a building works, you understand, operational maintenance, administrative side, budgeting side, and like I said, it is a very, very it's not a saturated area. So you can start basically. So this is like base entry, community manager. So for this place now, City Vibe, this is like their base entry. You can come into places like this, do like 6 months, gain the experience you need, and then begin to shoot for higher roles. Um, this is Rohit. This is their residential listing and tenant coordinator. This is there's a particular
But
okay.
are you sharing your screen? Because we can't see the screen.
Oh, I thought I was sharing my screen.
No, you're not.
I can see it. It's
I can
sharing
I
a
can
see
see
screen.
the
I
screen.
can see a screen.
Oh yeah, because I'm not sure my screen. Maybe something is wrong with your stuff. So yeah. So like I said, you can always start. You can see urgently hiring, right? This type of roles now, when you apply, honestly, they call you back into the 3 days for an interview, right? And like I said, you just need to same thing you're going to be doing a property manager role. You just need to see the building like your own, like you are like the owner of the building. They give it to you, you oversee everything, you oversee the maintenance, the programs, the staffs, and everything that has to be done. Like I said, it's not a big deal. There's one job I am looking for. I don't know if I said the yeah. Another one that well, that's for those in Croatia. They're urgently hiring. Yep. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, yes, shoot.
So when, for instance, like for people that want to pivot, how would you describe if they say, you have experience, how can you defend? Or what did you use as, like, was it okay to use a place in Nigeria, for instance?
Okay. Yeah, so I'll come to that. I'm just eh, There's one, sorry, there's one particular role that I know is hiring urgently in Calgary that I am looking. Don't know why it's not showing on my. Let me see this position. Oh, wait, yeah. Yep, this role. So these guys, I think I spoke to when you were about it, right? So this one is in Calgary, right? This one is just compliance. All you do for them is compliance. Basically what happens here is the property restoration team. They let's say somebody's house got burnt or something happened, right? And then they call insurance companies. The insurance companies then contact contractors that work for them. They then give the contract to those people to go and fix the property back to, the original state. So what you would do is when they give those contracts out, you would either pass or fail the contractors. If they've not done it the way they're supposed to do it, you fail them. If they've done it the way they're supposed to do it, you pass them. Do you understand? This interview was a 10-minute interview. We spoke for 10 minutes. They offered me the job. I just told them, I have a new role. I'm starting it on the 25th. So I didn't take it. And one of the reasons I didn't take it again, it's this job is great because when you're in this type of job, you get a lot of access into the industry. You meet a lot of contractors, a lot of properties, a lot of people that you can easily switch either way or you want to go. So if you guys are interested, you can also check this one out. It's a compliance rule. It's not no hard work. You just sit there in front of the computer, look at what they were supposed to do, look at what they've done, yes or no. Did you pass or did you fail? And what they're just going to ask you in the interview is how much of a compliance officer are you? Would you pass somebody when they fail, or would you um follow the policy? Once you just say I follow the policy, that's it. It's not that deep. Now, Shay, let me take your question first. First, answer banks. Hi.
Hello. Yeah, the question I just wanted to ask, because there was a lady that was talking about how will you say you have this experience back home. So, because I mean, for me, it would be difficult to tie my experience in terms of property management to any organization I've worked with here in Canada. So, if I'm to use my experience back home, for example, and say the last time I did that type of work was in 2023, will they not look at it like, yeah, how come you've not been working since, or would it be better to use the organizations there and say that was what one was doing? I'm just
Yeah,
asking.
so we'll come to that. So again, this is just example of my CV for property management. I believe I've shared it with some of you. Yeah. So basically what you want your CV to have is all of these things, right? You want to state that you've done property management, you want to state that you have doors, units, homes, right? Essential. You want to state that you have that. You want to say that you are, resort driven, you've driven revenue, performance, all of this ChatGPT grammar. Now, coming to core skills, you want to say you have this, you want to say you have this, very essential, right? RTA, Residential Tenancy Act. You want to say you're very compliant with it. You want to say you're a leasing administration and renewals. You want to say you're good with vacancy and arrears management. You want to say you're good with de-escalation and conflict resolution. You want to say you're good with, case documentation and reporting, blah, blah, blah. Major things, CRM systems, you're good with it. YADI exposure, you're good with it.
So okay, I'm not sure if everybody can see what you're sharing, but
We can't see
No,
your
no,
screen exactly.
we're not seeing it.
your screen looks like, I don't know, maybe you zoomed out or something.
Wait, let me go back. What is wrong with Zoom? Sorry about that, guys. I did not know. Please stop sharing. Let me share again. Can you guys see it now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
All right, so let me start again. So yeah, this is my CV for property management, right? So like I said, in the CV, we want to highlight that, we want to highlight this. Well, I want to highlight that we're into property management and community housing. We're professional, you know, XYZ. We want to highlight how many doors we've done before. So for the person that asked the question, I think it was Shaya, right? You want to say how many doors you have. Doors are what we call units here, right? So you can have one property, but the property has 250 doors. Do you understand? You guys understand that part?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we do.
The doors, you want to say you have doors. You want to say you've done, you're good with resort management, you're good with all of this strategy grammar. Now, core skills, we want to say we're into residential property and housing management. We want to say we're into housing and stability and residential resident support. This is essential. Residential Tenancy Act compliance, very essential. Your CV must have this. Your CV must have this on as well. Lease registration and renewals, vacancy areas and management. You can switch that to market vacancy loss or market renter price, anyhow you want to write it. But these three bullet points, your CV must have all three of them. Anyhow you want to change the grammar, you can change it. You can change the customer retention or whatever. It has to have that. You also need to have the escalation and conflict resolution because you're going to deal with all of that a lot. And community safety and planner liaison, you need to have that. And as well as CRM and property systems, yeah, the exposure, all of that, right? Now, each of them had over 250 doors. That shows that you already know what you're speaking because now you're calling terminologies in property management. You understand? Within that period, I had coordinated move-ins, move-outs, suite readiness in collaboration with administrators, management teams and external partners. Again, you want to talk about when they ask you, you'd be like, hey, within that period, I've managed move-ins and move-outs, prepared those units, for doing back-to-back MEP or we're doing a full renovation, right? So back-to-back, like I explained, is when somebody move out at 12 in the afternoon on the 31st, and somebody is coming in on the 1st of the following day. So we have like 24 hours to flip it from when that person moves out to paint the unit, clean the unit, flip it, and make it ready for the new person that's coming in. That's why we call it back to back. MEP is month-end preparation. So it's like a unit that needs more work. We cannot do it under 24 hours. So we have to do it MEP. By full innovation means it's a unit that was damped, we would have to do full innovation. Now, what happens with um now what happens with this type of units is that let's say you have a tenant that is coming in and then you find out that they're gonna ask questions like this. That let's say maybe there's cockroach in the unit or there's bed bug. You found out last minute. Now what do you do? First of all, when you find that out, you first of all call for a pest control team. Pest control team has to come and sort that out. Then you then inform the tenant that, hey, sorry, upon final checks, I found cockroaches or bed bugs in your unit. Are you still okay to take the unit? You have to tell the resident. If the resident says yes, okay, fine, you've told them. Again, whatever you do, please, you have to memo it. This is a field where you have to memo everything. You have to write everything down. You have to write it down because if you don't write that, it never happened and you get into trouble. So you don't write that you've told the tenant, you've told them, and you tell them, okay, this is the condition you're taking the units. If you want, we can put you up in a hotel, or if you want to move in like that, you can move in and we'll still conduct treatment, right? Treatment will be done. Normally, treatment for bed bugs and cockroaches, first treatment happens, and then there's another treatment 2 weeks later. There has to be another treatment 2 weeks later for the bed bug and cockroaches, and then you do all of that. And after that, there'll be a final treatment to confirm if our treatments were effective, as well as the tenant. And you have to follow up with the tenant. You have to let the tenant know that you're sorry this has happened, and that you're doing your best to make sure things are back to good graces and back to places where both of you can then resolution is made and you're able to de-escalate that. So things like that you'll be asked. Also in an interview, you might be asked, give a time where you've had a scenario, you're able to flip a bad customer service into a good one. Honestly, create a story. Have a particular story. Like you can even you as a tenant, think about a time a landlord did you badly and what you think they did that made it a good thing for you. Just use that. Just one story, perfect the story, say the story 1,000 times. It's just gonna come to you. And another thing I always tell people is even though let's say you're going for the Rohit job, you can still apply to the other lower jobs, even though you know you're not gonna take it, just because you want to go and use it as a training ground. You want to use it to go and familiarize yourself with what could be asked of you. Okay, so once you apply to this city of Calgary, like these are roles you want to apply to. As you can see, they're asking the pay is this, right? 44 to 58 per hour, depending on level of experience, right? The temporary roles, whatever, you can always, these like places you want to shoot your shot at. But you can use, like I said, the Avenue Living one to bridge your talent. And like I said, Boardwalk, this is like the biggest property management company in Calgary for now. So if you know you're not good at handling imposter syndrome and you just want to start at the base level, you can always come here and learn. Start, get in, learn. But here you need to drive. You need to have a car. They're gonna teach you everything you need to know about property management, honestly. This is good. I used to work here before I moved on. So it's a good entry level if you're not somebody that can bully your way through imposter syndrome, like I said. You can always start here, learn. It's always easy to get in. It's just to interview. The first one, they're just gonna ask you a couple of questions and show you PPMS and just tell you to find certain things. It's not that hard, like opening my system and telling me, oh, find Gmail, click Gmail, find track jobs. That's it. That's also what they'll tell you. Then the second interview, they just give you case scenarios and ask you if you know rent. Yes, share.
Yeah, the question I wanted to ask is what tools do you use? I know you mentioned Excel now.
So Excel, Outlook, Yadi. So Yadi is like honestly, Yadi is just like this. It just gives you the name of the company. Then it shows you the properties that you're going to be managing, and then there's a drop down, and then it just shows you the unit, and then there's another drop down, and then it shows you, what the history of the tenants. And if you want to move them in, move them out, or whatever you want to do with them, that's just what that does.
Okay, so also in terms of paying the people that work with you, for example, the janitorial company, the agent, the other third party, are you as the property manager responsible to ensure they get paid, or your organization as a whole does it centrally?
The organization as a whole does it centrally, but you ensure that their timesheets are accurate. That's just what you do. And there's going to be a part on the way you just check that they're entering their times the way they should. Honestly, that one you shouldn't worry about that because people don't joke with their money. So they're going to make sure their timesheet is entered by themselves. So because you're going to be dealing with landscapers, you're going to be dealing with cleaners, maintenance, and all of that. Now, for those that came late, like I said, you can also check um this, guys. You can do property administrator. It's like a property manager but on a lower scale, right? You can, you know, you can start here as well if you want. Like I said, because the market is not saturated, you can always start, do 6 months, get your experience, begin to shoot for bigger roles. Because the market is not saturated. It's not a market that would there are buildings will always come up. Buildings will always um be coming. Leasing consultant roles, you can always start if you want. and then begin to, build your way up. This is like a director role. As I explained before, community manager for these companies, like a director. So this one, you're going to have property managers under you that you're going to be managing, right? This role normally starts between 90 to $150,000 per annum, depending on, the company you go for. So it's like community role. So usually it's like that. But like I said, because the market is not saturated yet, you can always, start and then begin to find your way. Yes, share.
Sorry, I'm asking a lot of questions because I just want to
No, it's
understand.
fine.
You said community role is like the director who has other people working under them.
Yeah, this one.
So indirectly, it's like hierarchy. So the first entry point is like property admin, property manager, right? Then community will now be like you have so many properties you are managing. I mean, so many managers that manages property. So that one,
So
so that
it's like this. Entry level is mm, entry level would be your leasing agents and your property administrators and your assistant property managers. Entry level, right? That starts like between 50 to 60K, depending on the company you go for. Then from there, you move on to becoming a property manager, a community resident manager, and all that, right? So that one means now you manage the property itself. The leasing guys are under you, right? The people who are your leasing agent, property administrator, all those guys, they're not under you. You manage them. Then from there, you then move on to being a community director or a community associate or a community manager, which is this role, which means property managers are under you. So your portfolio begins to, so the way it happens is your portfolio begins to grow. Do you understand? Like, for example, you manage, like, right when I was at Boardwalk, I was a community resident manager and I had 6 portfolios under me, right? Now, the new company I work for, I control the whole of Alberta, right? So this thing begins to grow. So there's going to be a time where if I go high again, it's going to be a regional director. Now I control the whole of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and sometimes they add BC. So that's the way it works. Just see it like now when you come in, they give you one building. The more you grow in the industry, they give you 2 to 3 buildings, right? The more you grow in the industry, and the more they give you those buildings, the more you're gonna have teams that are working under you now that you control. So when you come in like as a property manager now, you're gonna report into somebody who's gonna be like a community manager, right? Because now it manages the community. That's the way. I don't know why they name it like that, but that's just what it is. So you're gonna report into your community manager. So when you become a community manager, you're gonna be reporting to a regional director. Do you get? So that's how you're just gonna keep growing. That's why I said this role um it's nice for somebody that has experience in property management. But again, you can apply to it if you feel you can, bamboozle your way through, the terms and everything. And honestly, it's a role you can apply to, especially if you wouldn't get in trouble if you have a strong property manager under you. Do you understand? You would only get in like serious trouble if you apply to this role if you don't have a serious property manager under you. Like if you have somebody who doesn't know their left from their right in the industry, then you get exposed here because your work would tell. But if you have somebody who's very good, then
let me just say something like back home. For example, what I've done that is making me ask all these questions. Like back home, I used to work in the banking industry and I was a regional coordinator. So I had like admin officers who managed, like each person managed about 3 to 4 branches and they were reporting to me. So for each of the region, I'll have like 6 admin managing like 3 branches each. And each of those branches will have like ATM spots, service centers, in addition to branch buildings. So in total, by the time you count everything that is being managed, is over 50 to 60 per the region. And when you're managing like two regions, but the difference now is that those are properties owned by the organization and they're using it to serve customers, not like we're renting it out, which is the difference here. So what I can only tie to the organization is when for marketing teams, they pay for their floor space for each of the marketing teams in the branches. So to ensure that they still have that space,
Mhm.
there's budget for. I mean, they must make sure they earn money. They make money annually to pay for their floor space, which
Mhm.
is usually budgeted for. So I was just trying to see how to relate this, but there's still a difference, which is why I'm trying to see how to tie it together and see.
So, so
So
basically, you're not far away. Trust me, you're not far away. You're very close. The only thing you just need to understand here would just be RTDRS and RTA. Do you understand? You're not far away because it's almost similar to what you're going to be doing here. You're going to be managing teams. You're going to be making sure those teams are working and doing what they've said they ought to be doing. You're going to make sure those properties are being run the way the policy of the organization wants it to be run. Like, so you're going to make sure standards are being met, tenants are being attended to, tenants are, moving in and moving out without destroying anything. Contractors are coming in and, going and doing everything they need to do. So for someone like you now, what I would say is if you know somebody that can, um, what I would advise is if you can pick up a property management role first, do it for like 6 months, right? Just to familiarize yourself with the terms and terminologies of, the system here. Then just begin to shoot for community manager roles and, regional manager roles. That's just what I advise. Because those roles is more about people management, right? And because you already have that experience, it will be easier for you to digress. The only reason why you would shoot lower now is because you want to go and get basic knowledge of terminologies of what we do, right? And just understand, familiarize yourself with basic things first. And once you've done that, in fact, once you even do 3 months, you've gotten yourself, you just begin to apply to other companies and be like, okay, yeah, I am here now. I can move to this place. So that's just it. That's just what I would advise that you do. But nonetheless, you can still, optimize your CV, prep it, and then still apply to roles like this. Like I said, the only reason why you would have an issue here, or you may have an issue here, is if your property managers are like newbies, like they don't know anything about property management. Do you understand? If your property managers are sound, honestly, you don't have an issue. Because what you're just doing here is you're like, hey, what you requested is approved. Hey, your leave is approved. Hey, okay, let me have a look at that. Let me check your budgeting. Hey, like basically you're just approving shit. That's what you're doing here. And you're asking people, hey, why have we not rented this unit? What's going on? Okay, I'm coming to site to come and see what's happening. Basically, people management. Do you understand? And then the RTDS, like obviously before they send an RTDS, before we go to court, because we don't want to waste money on lawyers, and call a lawyer in that we've done RTDS, and then the lawyer comes and says we've not followed the process properly. So you'd have to check before they sign and before you sign off, like, hey, or okay, you guys have done the process properly. Okay, no, you guys have done the process properly. That's it. That's basically what you'll be doing in this role. That's why I said you can apply if you're somebody that can learn quick, fast, and you can, easily get your
thank you very much. I'm not in Alberta, so it's difficult to come to your side. I'm just making inquiries.
where are you? Where are you?
I'm in Ontario.
Yeah, you can just search for Yeah, you can always wait. I know this company, but I don't know what they're paying. Yeah, Ontario, you can always start with, things like this and then begin to find, because I don't know anything about Ontario, honestly. I don't know what happens in that province. But you can always start with things like this residential community manager on site. You can always start with them to go into the industry in that province, see what happens in that province, and then, like I said, then begin to find your way around it. And the good part about the industry is that when for those that have their Canadian passport, those that will soon get their Canadian passport, once you um gain your experience, there are two ways this could end. It's either you go into the government part of it, like get a government job,